The quantum mechanics lab at MIT wasn't exactly where Dr. Helena Walsh expected to make first contact with an advanced alien civilization. She had been reviewing data from her latest experiment on quantum entanglement when the air itself seemed to ripple, and suddenly her lab wasn't empty anymore. The beings that materialized wore armor that seemed to breathe, shifting colors like liquid metal in sunlight. Their leader, tall and elegant with silvery skin and eyes that held galaxies, stepped forward with a grace that made Helena wonder if gravity even applied to them. "Dr. Helena Walsh," the alien spoke, its voice resonating with harmonics that shouldn't have been possible in Earth's atmosphere. "I am Supreme Regent Nyxis of the Nexarian Empire. Your recent breakthrough has attracted our attention." Helena glanced at her coffee mug, wondering if she'd finally cracked after too many sleepless nights. "I'm sorry, but my research isn't even published yet. How could you possibly know about it?" The Supreme Regent's lips curved in what might have been amusement. "Your species' internet security is quaint, but it's not the security that interests us. It's the implications of your work." Before Helena could process this casual admission of global cyber espionage, more figures materialized. These wore robes that seemed woven from starlight, covered in symbols that hurt her eyes if she looked at them too long. One of them, who appeared to be some kind of advisor, whispered something to Nyxis in a language that sounded like crystalline wind chimes. "The Council requires verification," Nyxis announced. "You will present your findings to the Galactic Assembly." Helena laughed nervously. "Look, I appreciate the interest, but I'm just a physicist trying to understand how particles communicate across space. I'm not qualified for any kind of galactic presentation." "You solved the paradox of infinite recursion," another alien stated flatly. "A problem that has stumped our greatest minds for millennia." Helena blinked. "The what?" "No, I was just trying to explain why quantum entanglement doesn't violate causality. It's a simple mathematical model, really." "Simple?" The advisor's voice rose several octaves. "You casually resolved a mathematical contradiction that has driven 17 of our greatest theorists to madness." Before Helena could explain that her solution was probably just a coincidence, reality shifted. The lab dissolved around them, replaced by a vast chamber that seemed to be made of living crystal. Thousands of alien beings filled tiered seats that spiraled impossibly upward, their forms ranging from vaguely humanoid to utterly incomprehensible. "The human will present," Nyxis announced to the assembly. Helena stood frozen, her mind racing. She was wearing jeans and a coffee-stained MIT sweatshirt, holding a half-empty mug that read, "Quantum physicists do it with uncertainty," and she was about to give a presentation to what appeared to be the galaxy's greatest minds. "Right now," she squeaked. "Is there a problem?" Nyxis asked. Helena took a deep breath. Well, if she was going to have a mental breakdown, it might as well be spectacular. She set down her coffee mug, pulled up her quantum matrices in her mind, and stepped forward. "So about quantum entanglement," she began. "Imagine you're trying to explain to two twins why they can't use their matching socks to send faster-than-light messages." What followed was either the most important scientific presentation in human history or the most elaborate hallucination ever documented. Helena explained her mathematical model using sock analogies, pizza delivery metaphors, and at one point, an interpretive dance to demonstrate wave function collapse. The assembly sat in absolute silence as she finished. Then Supreme Regent Nyxis did something that made the entire chamber gasp in shock. They bowed. Not just a slight nod, but a full, formal bow that sent ripples of astonishment through the gathered aliens. Some screamed in outrage, others fainted, and one being that appeared to be made of pure energy briefly overloaded, causing all the lights in the chamber to flicker. "What just happened?" Helena whispered to the nearest advisor, who was staring at her with all three of their eyes wide in shock. "The Supreme Regent of the Nexarian Empire, ruler of the 7 spiral arms, bearer of the cosmic crown, just acknowledged you as an equal," the advisor breathed. "This hasn't happened in 10,000 years of recorded history." Helena looked down at her coffee-stained sweatshirt, then back at the bowing ruler of apparently most of the known galaxy. Because of quantum socks. Because you saw simplicity where we saw complexity, Nyxus straightened, eyes gleaming. You've proven that humanity thinks differently, dangerously differently. That's when Helena realized this wasn't just about physics anymore. She had accidentally turned humanity's greatest weakness, our tendency to oversimplify complex problems, into our greatest strength. And now, for better or worse, Earth was about to become very, very important to a galaxy that hadn't even known we existed yesterday. Oh, she said faintly, really wishing she had finished that coffee. Well, that's not the Nexarian archives were unlike any library Helena had ever seen. Data streams flowed through crystalline columns like liquid starlight, while ancient texts written on materials that defied physics floated in stasis fields. But right now, she wasn't admiring the architecture. She was trying very hard not to panic. Let me get this straight, Helena said, packing between towering shelves of knowledge. You're telling me that my quantum mechanics research accidentally fulfilled a prophecy that's older than human civilization. High Archivist Zena, a being whose form seemed to shift between solid and gaseous states, rippled in what might have been agreement. The prophecy of convergence speaks of one who would unite the divided, simplify the complex, and bridge the unbridgeable gap. Your mathematical model does exactly that. Helena ran her fingers through her disheveled hair. It had been 3 days since the presentation that turned her life upside down, and things kept getting weirder. But that's just basic quantum theory combined with some simple analogies. Any grad student could understand it. That's precisely the point, a new voice interjected. Commander Ryxus of the Imperial Guard stepped from the shadows, his crystalline armor catching the light of the data streams. Your species sees patterns where we see chaos, simplicity where we see complexity. It terrifies many of our people. Is that why someone tried to kill me at breakfast? Helena asked dryly, remembering the morning's excitement when her food analyzer had detected a rather exotic poison in her space coffee. Ryxus's expression darkened. The purist faction believes your ideas threaten the fundamental order of our society. They're not entirely wrong. Helena slumped into a chair that obligingly adjusted to her human physiology. I'm just a physicist. I don't want to threaten anyone's society. Yet you've already begun, Zena whispered, their form condensing slightly. Your explanation of quantum entanglement using paired socks has been transmitted across 17 star systems. Universities are in upheaval. 3 major religious sects are claiming you're either a messiah or a demon. The socks were just a metaphor, Helena protested. A metaphor that solved an equation that has haunted our greatest minds for millennia, Ryxus reminded her. The paradox of infinite recursion was believed unsolvable. It was a cornerstone of our understanding of reality's limitations. Then you come along and solve it with clothing accessories. Helena was about to explain again that she hadn't solved anything revolutionary when an alarm echoed through the archives. The data streams turned red, and Ryxus's armor shifted to combat configuration. Breach in the outer defenses, he announced, drawing a weapon that seemed to bend light around it. The purists are making their move. What move? Helena asked, though she had a sinking feeling she knew the answer. They're coming to ensure your dangerous ideas don't spread further, Zena said, their gaseous form crackling with energy. They'll destroy the archives if they must. Helena stared at them. You're telling me that religious extremists are attacking the space library because I explained quantum physics using socks. Your humor masks fear, Ryxus observed. A common human trait, but yes, that's exactly what's happening. Before Helena could process this, the archive's massive doors began to glow with heat. Someone was cutting through them. We need to move, Ryxus grabbed Helena's arm. The prophecy texts must be protected. Forget the prophecy, Helena pulled away, her mind racing. Those data streams, they contain your civilization's complete knowledge, right? Zena rippled affirmatively. Millennia of science, history, and culture. And they're all connected, like a network. Yes, but... Helena was already moving, her fingers flying over the nearest interface panel. Your security systems are based on quantum encryption, aren't they? The same principles I've been studying. Rixus's eyes widened. You can't possibly understand our security protocols. Watch me, Helena grinned, the same manic energy that got her through all-night research sessions taking over. If quantum entanglement works the same way here as it does on Earth, then your entire network is basically just a really big pair of socks. The doors were beginning to melt. Helena could hear chanting in that musical alien language, though it sounded a lot less beautiful when it was calling for her death. Her fingers danced across the interface, applying the same principles she'd used in her lab, scaled up to an impossible degree. The data streams began to pulse in a new pattern. "What are you doing?" Xena gasped. "Creating a quantum backup," Helena muttered, her mind fully focused on the problem. "If I can entangle the data streams with their own quantum echoes, then even if they destroy the physical archives." The doors exploded inward. Figures in black armor stormed through, wielding weapons that crackled with dark energy. Rixus moved to defend them, his own weapon humming to life. But Helena wasn't paying attention anymore. She was in that special zone all scientists know, where the entire universe narrows down to a single problem that needs solving. Her hands moved with certainty as she implemented the same mathematical model that had caused all this trouble in the first place. The data streams flashed brilliantly, then seemed to double. Each stream now had a ghost image overlaying it, perfectly synchronized but somehow existing in a different phase of reality. "Impossible," Xena whispered. The first weapon's fire hit the shelves just as Helena finished. The physical archives began to burn, but the knowledge remained, protected by the same quantum principles that had brought her here. She turned to face the attackers, a tired smile on her face. "You know, for an advanced civilization, you people really overcomplicate things." That's when the second prophecy activated, and things got really interesting. The Grand Chamber of Prophecies made Helena's MIT lecture hall look like a broom closet. Towering columns of living crystal pulsed with ancient knowledge, while the curved ceiling displayed what appeared to be a real-time map of the entire galaxy. But right now, all eyes, including several dozen that didn't technically qualify as eyes, were fixed on the glowing text floating in the center of the room. "The Bridge-Maker shall come," High Oracle Vexus read, their multi-layered voice echoing through the chamber, bearing simple truths that shake foundations, wielding ignorance as wisdom, chaos as order. "I don't wield ignorance," Helena protested, still picking crystalline debris from her hair after the archive incident. "I just explain things the way I understand them." "Exactly," Commander Rixus said, his armor still battle-scarred from the recent fight. "You understand complex universal principles through what our people would consider primitive analogies. That's the ignorance the prophecy speaks of." Helena rolled her eyes. "You know, for an advanced civilization, you're all really snobby about socks." A ripple of shocked murmurs ran through the assembled council members. Apparently, sass wasn't a common response to ancient prophecies. High Oracle Vexus continued reading. "When the stars align and knowledge flows like water, the Bridge-Maker shall face the three trials of transcendence." "Oh no," Helena held up her hands. "No trials. I'm a physicist, not a mythological hero. I don't do trials." "The prophecy is absolute," Vexus intoned. "The trials must be faced." "Or what?" "Or the quantum instabilities you've introduced into our systems will cascade," a new voice said. A figure stepped forward, Director Kyleth of the Science Directory, their biomechanical enhancements gleaming. "Your simple solution to the archive's security has created ripples throughout our entire network. The entanglement is spreading." Helena frowned. "That's not possible. Quantum entanglement doesn't work that way." "It didn't," Kyleth corrected, "until you introduced human mathematics to our systems. Now we're seeing unprecedented patterns of quantum correlation. Reality itself is simplifying." "That's bad?" Helena asked, though she had a feeling she knew the answer. "Our entire civilization is built on complex quantum mechanics," Rixus explained. Our ships, our cities, our very way of life depends on carefully maintained quantum states. If everything suddenly becomes simple, everything stops working, Helena finished, finally understanding. Because you've deliberately made things complex to prevent exactly this kind of fundamental change. The trials are not just tests, Vexus said softly. They are calibration points. Each one you complete will help stabilize the quantum matrix of our reality. Fail and reality breaks, Helena sighed. Because apparently that's something I can do now. Fine, what are these trials? The chamber's lighting shifted, and 3 holographic images appeared. The first showed a massive structure that seemed to be made of pure energy. The labyrinth of infinite recursion, Vexus announced. A maze that changes based on the quantum state of the solver's mind. The second image displayed what looked like a swirling vortex of mathematical equations. The cipher of absolute truth, a test of pure logic that has driven our greatest minds to madness. The third, Helena squinted, is that a rubber duck? The paradigm of unexpected variables, Vexus said gravely. A challenge that defies all known parameters of reality. Helena stared at the rubber duck. You people really need to get out more. Before anyone could respond to this blasphemy, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. The galactic map above them shifted, showing spreading patterns of quantum disturbance. It's beginning, Kyleth announced, their enhancements whirring anxiously. The simplification cascade is accelerating. We're detecting quantum correlation patterns across entire star systems. How long do we have? Rixus demanded. At current rates of progression, Kyleth's mechanical eyes whirred. 48 Earth hours before critical systems begin failing. Helena looked at the 3 trials, then at the spreading quantum chaos she'd apparently caused, then at her coffee-stained MIT sweatshirt. She really needed to start dressing better for potentially reality-breaking events. Right, she said, squaring her shoulders. Let's start with the maze. I've got some experience with those. I once had to navigate the MIT parking structure during finals week. This is not a time for humor, Vexus admonished. Actually, Helena grinned, humor might be exactly what we need. You said the maze changes based on the quantum state of the solver's mind, right? Well, humans have a saying, laughter is the best medicine. Maybe it works on quantum mechanics too. As if in response, the chamber's crystals pulsed with new energy, and the prophecy text began to glow brighter. The bridgemaker brings chaos to order, Vexus read, their voice trembling slightly, and in chaos finds a higher order still. Helena cracked her knuckles. Time to see if human chaos is compatible with alien order, and seriously, what's the deal with the rubber duck? The answer to that question would change the fundamental nature of reality itself. But first, she had a quantum maze to solve, and she was pretty sure she could do it with another sock-based metaphor, just to really annoy the aliens. The labyrinth of infinite recursion looked less like a maze and more like someone had taken reality itself and twisted it into a pretzel. Paths branched in impossible directions, some leading up walls, others seemingly floating in midair, and at least one that appeared to go backwards in time. Okay, Helena muttered, standing at the entrance. This is fine, totally fine, just a maze that violates every known law of physics. No big deal. Behind her, safely behind the quantum barrier, the alien council watched with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Commander Rixus's armor was cycling through nervous color patterns, while Director Kyleth's biomechanical enhancements whirred continuously as they monitored the spreading quantum disturbances. Remember, High Oracle Vexus's voice echoed in her mind through some sort of psychic link. The maze reconstructs itself based on your quantum state. Every thought, every decision, every... Yeah, Helena interrupted. My brain makes the maze do weird stuff. Got it. Quick question, though. Has anyone ever tried just walking through it? Dead silence met her question. You mean just walk? Kyleth asked, their mechanical voice struggling with the concept. Without calculating quantum probabilities, without solving the recursive algorithms, without considering the 11-dimensional implications. Yeah, Helena shrugged. Sometimes the best way through a maze is to just start walking. She took a step forward. The maze immediately shifted, paths twisting and reconstructing themselves like a Rubik's Cube solved by an overcaffeinated octopus. Helena kept walking. Fascinating, Kyleth muttered, their sensors going wild. She's generating quantum uncertainty fields simply by not thinking about them. That's humans for you, Reixa said. They excel at not thinking about things. Helena ignored them, focusing instead on what she did best, breaking down complex problems into simple parts. The maze kept shifting around her, but she noticed something interesting. It seemed to react more strongly when she tried to understand it. Hey, she called back to the council, quick physics question. If this maze changes based on my quantum state, and observation affects quantum states. She closed her eyes and kept walking. The reaction was immediate. The maze's shifting slowed dramatically, its patterns becoming almost stable. Without Helena actively observing and trying to understand its complexity, the quantum structure had nothing to react to. Impossible, Vexus breathed. She's treating quantum uncertainty like a game of peekaboo. Sometimes, Helena called back, eyes still closed. The best way to solve a problem is to stop trying to solve it. She continued forward, guided only by instinct and the occasional bump into a wall. The maze, denied the complex quantum interactions it was designed for, began to simplify itself. Paths straightened, dimensions collapsed, and reality started behaving itself again. Until she hit the rubber duck. Helena's eyes snapped open at the squeaking sound. There, floating in midair at a junction of quantum pathways, was the same rubber duck from the prophecy hologram. She said, anyone want to explain this? The paradigm of unexpected variables manifests differently for each challenger, Vexus explained. It appears yours has taken the form of a bathing toy. Helena reached for the duck. The moment her fingers touched it, every screen and sensor in the observation area went crazy. Reality rippled like a pond disturbed by a stone. The quantum correlations are accelerating, Kyleth shouted. The simplification cascade is reaching critical levels. Because of a rubber duck? Helena asked incredulously. No, Rixus realized, because you're doing exactly what the prophecy said. You're wielding ignorance as wisdom. By refusing to engage with the quantum complexity of the maze, you've forced it to operate on your terms. You're rewriting the rules of reality itself. Helena looked at the rubber duck in her hand, then at the maze around her, which was now behaving more like a normal, physics-respecting structure. So, she said slowly, you're telling me that by being too simple to understand your complex systems, I'm actually making them better. You're making them different, Kyleth corrected. Whether that's better or worse depends on your perspective, and right now, your perspective is rewriting the quantum foundation of our entire civilization. Helena squeezed the duck thoughtfully. It squeaked again, and somewhere in the distance, a star system's worth of quantum computers briefly simplified themselves into abacuses. Well, she said, tucking the duck into her sweatshirt pocket, that's what you get for making things needlessly complicated. Now about those other 2 trials. The maze dissolved around her as she completed the first trial, but Helena barely noticed. She was too busy thinking about the implications of what she'd just done. She hadn't just solved the maze, she'd proven that sometimes the most complex problems require the simplest solutions. And somewhere in the quantum fabric of reality, a rubber duck's squeak echoed through dimensions, reminding the universe that sometimes the most profound truths come in the most ridiculous packages. The cipher of absolute truth floated before Helena like a cosmic screensaver, a swirling vortex of mathematical equations that had supposedly driven alien geniuses to madness. The rubber duck in her pocket squeaked encouragingly. Right, she said, cracking her knuckles. Let's see what's got all you super-advanced aliens so stumped. The equations shifted and twisted, forming patterns that shouldn't have been possible in 3-dimensional space. Behind her, Director Kyleth's sensors were working overtime, monitoring both the cipher and the continuing quantum simplification spreading across the galaxy. The cipher requires perfect logical progression, Vexus explained. Each solution must follow inevitably from the last, creating a chain of absolute truth that— Why? Helena interrupted. The chamber went silent. Even the equations seemed to pause their swirling. What do you mean, why? Kyleth asked. Why does it need to be perfect? Why does each step need to follow inevitably? That's not how real discovery works. Helena gestured at the equations. Some of the biggest breakthroughs in human science came from mistakes, from crazy guesses, from people looking at problems completely wrong and stumbling onto something right. The equations flickered, as if uncertain. That's not how it works, Vexus protested. The cipher demands perfection, absolute truth. There's no such thing, Helena said firmly. Even on Earth, we've figured out that observation changes reality. The act of measuring something affects what you're measuring. Nothing can be absolutely true because the universe doesn't work that way. The equations began to shift more rapidly, some beginning to simplify themselves. Look, Helena continued, warming to her subject, you've all been trying to solve this by being perfect. But what if that's exactly backwards? What if the real truth is that nothing can be perfect? She pulled out the rubber duck and held it up to the swirling equations. This little guy, it's got manufacturing defects, tiny imperfections. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it work. The cipher's equations were definitely changing now, complex proofs collapsing into simpler forms. She's doing it again, Rixus murmured. She's changing the rules by refusing to play by them. Helena stepped forward, still holding up the duck. You want absolute truth? Here it is. The universe is messy. Reality is full of mistakes and accidents and weird little rubber ducks that shouldn't matter but somehow do. And that's not just okay, it's literally how everything works. The cipher shuddered, its equations simplifying faster and faster. Screens around the chamber began flashing warnings as the quantum simplification cascade accelerated. Multiple star systems are reporting quantum state changes, Kyleth announced, their mechanical voice tense. The simplified physics are spreading exponentially. Yeah, Helena grinned, because I'm right. And you all know I'm right. You've just been too busy trying to be perfect to admit it. The cipher collapsed in on itself with a sound like reality sighing in relief. Where the complex equations had been, a single, simple formula floated. E equals mc2. Einstein's equation, Helena laughed. Of course, the simplest expression of the relationship between matter and energy. You've been trying to write a perfect proof of the universe when the universe already wrote it for you. The second trial is complete, Vexus announced, though they sounded uncertain. But the quantum simplification is exactly what needs to happen, Helena finished. She turned to face the final challenge, a seemingly empty space where the paradigm of unexpected variables waited. This is the big one, isn't it? She asked. The one that's supposed to test how I handle the unexpected. Correct, Vexus nodded, though given your unique approach so far. Helena stepped into the empty space. Nothing happened. She said after a moment, is it broken? The paradigm adapts to each challenger, Kyleth explained. It should be presenting you with your greatest unexpected. Oh, Helena snapped her fingers. I get it. The unexpected variable is that there isn't one. You expected me to expect something unexpected, so the really unexpected thing would be nothing at all. The empty space rippled, reality hiccuped, and suddenly everything made sense. That's what this has all been about, Helena said softly. The prophecy, the trials, the quantum simplification. You've all been so focused on making things complex, on finding perfect solutions, that you forgot the simplest truth of all. Sometimes the answer is that there doesn't need to be an answer. The rubber duck squeaked one final time, and the quantum cascade reached its peak. Throughout the galaxy, impossibly complex systems simplified themselves. Quantum computers recalculated their functions. Spaceships recalibrated their drives. And reality itself seemed to take a deep breath and relax. What have you done? Vexus whispered. Fix things, Helena shrugged. Or maybe broke them in a better way. Your civilization got so caught up in making everything perfect that you lost sight of what makes the universe actually work. chaos, uncertainty, and the occasional rubber duck. She looked around at the transformed chamber, at the screens showing a galaxy adapting to its new, simpler quantum states. "Don't worry," she added. "Everything still works, it just works. Differently, more naturally. The way it was probably supposed to work before you all tried to make it perfect." Supreme Regent Nyxus, who had been watching silently throughout the trials, finally stepped forward. "The Bridgemaker has done more than complete the trials," they announced. "She has fulfilled the true prophecy, not by mastering our complexity, but by teaching us to embrace simplicity." Helena grinned. "Does this mean I can go home now, because I really need to change this sweatshirt?" The assembled aliens looked at this human, this simple, imperfect, brilliant human who had revolutionized their entire civilization with nothing but stubbornness and a rubber duck, and realized that perhaps they had been the ones overthinking everything all along. And somewhere in the quantum fabric of the universe, reality itself seemed to laugh, finally remembering that sometimes the most complex truths are also the simplest ones.